A powerhouse vocalist with an amazing career that spans over 40 years, Ute Lemper has been absent from the Canadian stages for quite a while, but bringing a one-of-a-kind show to Massey Hall in Toronto on January 26th and then heading over to Montreal January 28th. Ute, how are you?
Yes, good morning from New York. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I live in New York for more than 25 years now. Can you imagine how the time flew? Incredible. I stayed here after I was on Broadway in 1997, and I stayed. Can you believe it? And suddenly, 26 years later, I'm still here.
And so you started out at dance school, right? And then went into acting school. How did singing end up being your claim to fame?
Born in the 60s, during the Cold War in West Germany. Yes, in a very kind of small town called Münster, and all I knew is I needed to somehow live music, express music, feel music. Music was my best friend, and so I went to the dance school, ballet classes, all of them, all of the schools that were available in the neighborhood. I frequented all of them and extended to modern dance and tapping and blah, blah, blah. And when I was a teenager, I found that singing was wonderful too. I wasn't sure if I had a voice, but I certainly enjoyed the expression of singing, mostly in the showers. Didn't really know what to do with the singing classes. And then I wanted to tell a story. And just beautiful singing was definitely not enough for me. I wanted to tell some exciting, interesting story that was compatible with my young, rather rebellious spirit. And so, already as a teenager, I discovered the music of Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht, which was written in the 20s during Weimar for, I guess, younger actors, activist actors that stood for freedom of expression. And I thought, well, how wonderful, interesting it is. I hadn't heard about this, that there was actually a very progressive culture in this country, which was a very different country that I experienced in the 60s, a very moralistic, very like small-minded country and the bourgeois country. But yes, the Weimar time had been long ago completely destroyed by the Nazis. But in that Weimar time, I found some very interesting proclamations for and ideas for humanity and society's concept for women, emancipation, and just, anti-establishment ideas to express a young spirit that wanted to be free and see a better world to live in. So all of it came very successive over the years of finding my identity as a young person, as a young woman, as a German, and as an artist later. Yes, and then I went to acting school after high school. I went to Vienna to study at the Max Reinhardt seminar. Of course, this was now getting serious. And then I started with my professional work soon after this.
And so you perform in 6 different languages: German, your native tongue, English, French, Yiddish, Russian, and Spanish?
Well, I don't speak all these languages.
Okay.
I understand well enough, and I know the music of the languages to sing them. I mean, fluently, I'm only in German, English, and French. A little bit Spanish, a little bit Yiddish is very close to the German, but the Russian, certainly I don't speak Russian, but it's a beautiful language, though, and very beautiful to sing it. When
you came onto the scene, people were comparing you to Marlene Dietrich, and you wrote to her?
This was in 1987, and I was in Paris. I was playing the Sally Bowles in the Parisian production of Cabaret. And believe it or not, I was 24 years old. Marlene Dietrich was 87 years old. She lived in Paris, and she hadn't left the house for more than a decade, not to show her aged face. But she was, just before internet and all of this, of course, she was watching television, listening to the radio, and reading the newspapers. And it was a very successful production. I was awarded with this Molière, the French, Tony Award. Very overwhelmed with this success and suddenly this stardom. But she heard about me, and I wrote her a letter to apologize for the comparisons, with this legend, with this incredible woman of the future, I always call her, who was way ahead of her time. And I thanked her for the inspiration, of course, she had given to generations of women. And so I didn't expect an answer whatsoever. But, a month later, I received a phone call, and there she was on the phone. Marlene Dietrich, 87 years old, spoke with me for 3 hours. it was a wave of unbelievable legacy that came over me in that phone call, a wave of melancholy, a wave of an icon, a myth of a woman who had a very big life, and also great sadness in her heart about the fact that she could never go back to Germany. After the war, the Germans did not forgive her, what a word, but for having been an expatriate and joining the American army in World War II and fighting against Nazi Germany. For this bravery, she was awarded everywhere the greatest honors, but the Germans called her a traitor of the fatherland.
Right. Well, she was in uniform, wasn't she, on the front lines?
Not a soldier with a gun, but she was with the troops at the front lines, yes.
Yeah.
She was entertaining the troops, lifting their morals, performing for them, singing for them, socializing with them, just giving them a good spirit at the front lines. And after 18 months of being straight at the front line, even in Paris, Normandy, Billy Wilder said, "Marlene, you're spending more time at the front than General Eisenhower."
Oh.
And she said, "Yes, I have to do this. This is what I need to do." It was a hard time, but I guess she loved also to be adored by all those soldiers, and in the middle of the chaos, I don't know how she could have done this, but she did. And she was very emancipated and completely basically leveled with the men. Very admirable what she did. The Germans never apologized to her until her death. Oh. She died in 1992, and they never really accepted her back. And she was, when she spoke to me on the phone in 1987, she was really bitter about this. And she reached out to me to speak German, her favorite language. She recitated Rilke to me. She even spoke about the music, the songs. Yeah, she had a lot to say. She was still very awake, very uncentered though, and rather wicked, but bitter.
Oh, you should write a book about that conversation. 3 hours long. So did you write anything down, or is it just all in your head?
Well, first of all, I made a show out of this, my show Rendezvous with Marlene, and I really wanted to bring this to Canada. But now, first we do an orchestra show with a variety of repertoire that's kind of a retrospective. But yes, I do have a stage show that I wrote myself about 4 or 5 years ago, right before the pandemic. And it is a very, very interesting show where I speak about this theatrically, about this phone call. The young Ute meets the old Marlene, and now the old Ute is telling the story of the young Ute and channeling basically the monologue of Marlene Dietrich. So that is one of my favorite shows on stage. But talking about a book, and I do, by the way, I do the show in German, in English, and French. I would love to bring it to Canada. Please, let's invite me to Canada with the show. This is my favorite show. It's so close to my heart, the show. It's political, it's wicked, it's about big subjects in our world, now and then. And anyway, but I also wrote a book last year for my 60th birthday, an autobiography. I wrote in German because a German publicist asked me to write it. And it was a little bit hard to get completely into the language in the beginning, but then, I caught fire, and I loved writing this. It's a very big book, autobiography. It was like a Spiegel bestseller in Germany already right now, and I'm about to license it now internationally, so I can publish the book in English and other languages. And and a very large chapter is dedicated in this book to this rencontre.
I'll definitely add that to my list. And so what you are bringing to Canada is Ute Lemper from Berlin to Broadway. And this is going to feature favorites that you've done over your career?
Yes, it is basically a journey through time. Of course, there's Kurt Weill, but these recordings, imagine, they came out in 1987, 36 years ago. On Decca, on Universal, and they were sold worldwide. That's really a very jump start to my career at the time, my recording career at least. And yes, and this repertoire stayed with me. And now we are 100 years after Weimar. it's now 2024. This Weimar Republic was rocking in 1924. Yeah. So I sing a beautiful Weimar suite with this political cabaret, a satire written about sexual liberation and freedom of expression and all of this by these artists in the 20s. Of course, some Kurt Weill, Brecht. And then I sing... My favorite repertoire also is the French chanson. So I sing some Léo Ferré, some Jacques Brel, and a bit of Edith Piaf, which when all these years I lived in Paris in the 80s and 90s, I really grew very close to this beautiful poetry and music, and it stayed very close to my heart over the decades. And yes, there's a little bit of Broadway in there, not really that much because I'm not really the Broadway chick. Even though I was on Broadway in Chicago and in the West End in London, and I did musicals from Peter Pan to Cats to The Blue Angel to Chicago. So there's a little bit of hints to that, memories of being in these productions and a couple of pearls of songs I sing. That whole story is pretty much linear, really. It's about carrying on my kind of heritage of singing the music that is important, and that is really also the Yiddish music, the music from Berlin, the political music, the music of the song from Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind, Pete Seeger, Where Have All the Flowers Gone. All these songs have so much to say nowadays. They're written in different times of chaos and different kind of disarray in the world, but they are always so truthful. And as I say, history wants to be a great teacher, but it just couldn't find any students.
Yeah. You're backed by the FILMharmonic Orchestra for this production, right?
Yes, exactly. And yes, I'm excited. We have a rehearsal, and then we're going to go on stage, and it will be an adventure. Yeah. But I have beautiful arrangements written for orchestra. And so this is a small orchestra. There will be some adaptations of these arrangements, but it's always gorgeous. It's a privilege to be accompanied by an orchestra and feel the energy and the beauty of their playing together.
Oh, wow.
But I love the storytelling that I try to combine everything and tell really with it the story of my life. Like I sing a little bit of Astor Piazzolla, the Argentinian tango composer, which I used to tour with about 10 years ago with the original quintet from Buenos Aires. I have fond memories of this collaboration. So there's a little bit of beautiful, it's a mosaic of my memories, my musical memories, and I just honestly, so writing the book, by the way, you can order this on Amazon already, in German and Italian for those who speak those languages, and hopefully soon in English. But it was wonderful to dive into these memories deeply in detail, and really, I'm just so grateful that I was able, as an artist, to experience so many different chapters. And I was able to also emancipate myself a little bit from the stage world, the musical world, and create my own compositions, my own creations with, the music I wrote myself to the words by Charles Bukowski, by Pablo Neruda and Paulo Coelho, my own CDs with my own self-penned songs. The last one's called Time Traveler. That CD just came out last year, and I enjoy very much to just have the freedom to create myself, and to tell you the truth, it was always the hardest for me to be actually caught in these musical productions where you have to perform 8 shows a week for a very long time. And I thought it was kind of stifling sometimes to be in this drill of having to perform so much and always the same thing. And it was very hard for me throughout my entire life to combine motherhood with this artistic life. And I have 4 children. Most of them are grown up now. I still have one school child in the middle school now. I thought it was, that's why the book is quite inspiring, I think, because I really open up my heart, my soul about the challenges I faced and the compromises I made and the heartache I had pursuing all these many different lives in one life. And there's some spiritual advice and some philosophical thought, and I think it's a pretty deep book, and I love to on stage also speak in these kind of terms that I wrote down in my book, and then I just like to talk about it too.
What's the book called?
The book is called Die Zeitreisende, which is called The Time Traveler.
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah.
it just means really that I've lived also through so many incredible, groundbreaking changes of time, social, political changes, Germany, the Cold War, then the fall of the wall. All the changes right after this were so radical and overwhelming. And then at the same time to be one of the early Europeans, in the 90s when Europe broke open after the wall came down. I was like the European artist that traveled in all these different countries and sang. And what most important for me is that I was through these recordings of the music of Weimar that were so popular at the time. I was, as a young post-war German, kind of an ambassador to speak about the truth, to speak about the past, to speak about the Holocaust, to speak about the Nazi time, and this haunting heritage that was written in my German passport that I needed to talk about. And at the same time, it was fuel for me to keep singing and to stand up with these songs to revive this period of Weimar that was forgotten, and the German language was stigmatized at that time in the 80s, even still from World War II. And it was a very important part I played to speak about this genocide and this failure to really see it for what it was, and to bring the responsibility in the world that comes along with it as a German. Even though I lived for so many years abroad, I'm definitely a New Yorker, completely a New Yorker, much more than a German. But I'm also a European and German, and that's the fantastic thing about living in New York. You live amongst all immigrants, and we all carry our stories together here in the heavens over New York.
And we can't wait to hear your stories in all the different languages you're going to sing to us in Toronto and in Montreal. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today. And what a career you've had. Keep going, and we look forward to seeing what you have to bring.
Thank you very much. And yes, I'm looking forward to finally get back to Canada. Thank you.